Live. So, as usual, nighttime stream. This stream is governed by sleeping baby rules. So, my daughter is asleep. If she wakes up, stream is done because obviously priorities. So right now, I haven't really gone state by state, talking about polls, talking about what I believe is going to happen on Tuesday. And so I've got an electoral map in front of me over here. Now I can't share it with you guys since I'm streaming from my phone, but I've got the map in front of me, and I've got my glasses, so I'm not doing the squint. And I'll be just going state by state. And so I'm going to start with the really obvious ones because I'm going to wait until people filter in to really get through go through the swing states. I'm going to go through the ones that everybody actually knows, but I'm going to wait a little bit and we'll talk about polls. I'll wait till there's a few people in the room to really get into the states. So, a bunch of polls have come out recently that are kind of weird. I've seen a Harris +3 in Iowa. I don't believe it, but I've seen it. I have seen a Harris +1 and a Trump +1 in New Hampshire. Those are both rather strange. I've even seen a Harris +2 in New Mexico. And then Utah, I've seen Trump plus +0.5, and that's as high as I've seen that one. I've also seen some kind of strange ones coming out of Alaska, predicting Alaska going, Trump only winning by 7 or 8 points, which is strange. I've seen New York, which Biden won by 23, as low as 12 for Harris. There's been a lot of polls coming out. Everybody's putting out their final polls. I know CNN put several out showing Wisconsin with a Harris +6. I've seen a bunch of really weird ones, just a bunch of really weird ones. Oregon is another interesting one. I've seen some polls showing Trump only losing by 7 in Oregon, which is kind of crazy, but I could see with how wild the stuff in Oregon that's been going on is. Daniel Merzen, who do you support? I support Trump. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through all of these states, and then we'll do the swing states last. So like I said, I've got a map up here. I've got my glasses so I can actually see, and my daughter's asleep, so this is sleeping baby rules for the stream. So if I have to stop, I have to stop. Okay, so we're going to start with Washington, Oregon, and California, all of which are going to go to Harris. So Washington is probably going to be about a 12 to 15 margin, somewhere in there. I've seen nothing to indicate any kind of resurgence for Republicans. So let's see. So fail book. I'm from the UK. How do election results work? Do you know? So based on the population of the state, you end up with a number of electoral votes. Whoever has the most electoral votes wins. That's the way it works. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of, like I said, we'll start with the obvious ones. So West Coast all goes to Harris. 12 out of Washington, 8 from Oregon, and 54 from California. All of those will go to Harris. California, I don't think she'll win. Biden won it by, I think, 27. I've seen it as low as 19 for Harris. So that's where this popular vote edge in the popular vote edge that Trump has. So then, of course, Alaska. Alaska is only 3 electoral votes, but that's going to go to Trump probably by about 8 or 9. I've seen rumors that Alaska's slowly turning purple. I'm not sure about that, but right now it's by the polls. It's kind of looking like Alaska is going to be about 8 points to Trump, and obviously Hawaii goes to Harris. We're going to move further toward the middle of the country. So Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah all are going to go to Trump easily by a whole lot of points. Now, Montana is interesting. There's a Senate seat that the Republican is actually leading, and Sheehy, I think is his name. The Trump bringing people out to vote is actually going to be really helpful to get him into that Senate seat. Now, people are talking about Colorado being a swing state. I disagree. Colorado is not going to be a swing state. All 10 electoral votes going to go to Harris. And there's some craziness going on there. I don't know if you guys saw uh, the what is it? The county, no, Secretary of State. The Secretary of State in Colorado leaked a whole bunch of voting machine passwords. Huge scandal. Nothing's going to happen to her, though. Colorado's going to stay blue. LW Fragrance, you like Trump or Kamala? I voted for Trump yesterday. Let's see. Okay, so then I'm going to hold off on New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada. We'll come back and talk about those later because they're all a lot closer than people think. And we'll move, let's see, North Dakota, South Dakota, and generally Nebraska. They're all going to go Trump, except there's that one district in Nebraska that's going to go to Kamala. I think it's one electoral vote there, and then I think 3-4 other Nebraska votes going to Trump. You'll have to forgive me for not knowing all the electoral counts right off the top of my head, because this is the first time I've ever actually broke down an election map like this, publicly. Kansas. Now, Kansas had an interesting poll, 5% only toward Trump, which is absolutely crazy. Kansas being a very red state. But it looks, yes, I did vote Trump, LW Fragrance. Yes, I said that a minute ago. I voted early yesterday. But I believe Kansas is turning more purple. I actually went to and did my undergraduate degree at the University of Kansas, and Kansas is getting more liberal. But right now it's going to go to Trump. I would guess by about 8 or 9 points. That 5 seems too close. The aggregate is much wider gap than that. The aggregate is looking like possibly, as much as 10 to 12 in Kansas. But people are saying Kansas is going to be a swing state. I completely disagree. Let's see here. Oklahoma, obviously going to go Trump. Now, Texas. Texas is an interesting one. Because everybody's talking about Democrats are talking about we're gonna flip Texas. Like no, you're not gonna flip Texas. Texas is solidly between 5 and 6 points to Trump. I actually expect, based on the polls that I've seen over the last month or so, I expect a bigger margin of victory for Trump in Texas against Harris than against Biden. I think it's going to regress because he won by 5.8 over Biden. I believe it was 5.8 or 6.8. I think it was 5.8. I think he's going to push that lead to about 8% in Texas. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, all going to go easily to Trump. They always do. Iowa, I just saw a poll come out that said Harris +3 in Iowa. Absolute nonsense. In the aggregate of all the polls that we've seen, it's been steadily Trump. Now, there haven't been as many polls out of Iowa as you would like to see, but Iowa is going to go Trump, and I would say solidly 7 to 8 points just based on what I've been seeing in the polls up to this point. Let's see. South Carolina is going to go fully to Trump. Florida, there is another one they're talking about flipping. They are not going to flip Florida. In fact, Florida has progressed even more toward the Republican side since 2020. So you're going to see Florida stay red, and it's going to be by a decent margin. Right now, the polls are saying 6, 7, or 8 in favor of Trump. That's what most of them say. I think it's going to be even bigger, maybe 9, 10, or 11. But it will be a solid red state, and we'll know that one pretty early. Trump will carry Florida. Let's see. West Virginia obviously is going to go Trump. And then let's see. There's some more solid blues. So I'm going to leave behind Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, New Hampshire. I'm going to leave all those off for the moment because those are all, they're not necessarily swing states, but people are talking about them as swing states. Now, Illinois, absolutely not a chance. It's going to go big time to Harris. It always will. And then, of course, all of the small states up there in New England. So you're going to have Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and D.C., obviously, all going to Harris. Now, D.C. is funny. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at a poll from D.C. It's literally like 92% Democrat. D.C. is super Democrat. Now, New York is one people are trying to say it's a swing state. It's possibly going to be flipped by Trump. I disagree. Now, Biden won New York by 23 points. And right now, what the polls are saying is it's going to probably be something like 12 to 14%, which is a huge swing. Again, just like California, California is going to go Harris, obviously, but it's the margin where it was 27 with Biden, it's down to about 20 with Harris. She's getting a huge drop in that. New York is, again, it was 23 to Biden. It's down to about 12 to 14 for Harris. A huge chunk of the popular vote is coming out for Trump in those areas, which is why the aggregate polling is showing between 1 and like 1.8 for Trump right now. So a lot of those chunks of population in California and New York, those are going to help Trump out with the popular vote. LW Fragrance, sorry, last question. I don't know if you said yet, will SF, you mean San Francisco go Trump? God, no. San Francisco will not go Trump. Not even close. So this is, and once again, like this is all going just by the polls. I'm not taking into account any shenanigans or anything like that. This is just strictly by polling. This is what I think is going to happen. So all that's left now is the swing states. And by the way, Maine is going to go 3 votes for Harris, 1 for Trump, most likely. That's usually the way those votes split. However, Maine is a really difficult one to predict because there's been like 5 polls out of Maine this entire cycle. So I don't know what's going on with Maine. If I had to guess, I would say the 1 vote from the northern part of Maine, that's going to go Trump. It usually does, all the rural areas, and then everything else is going to go Harris. So 3 to Harris, 1 to Trump. Okay, so now what we have left is the swing states. So we've kind of broken down those are all the obvious ones. So we'll start west again. We're going to start with Nevada. Now, right now, Trump is polling about 0.3 ahead of Harris in Nevada. Now, I think that the margin is going to be a little bit bigger than that margin right now because there have been marginal gains in local elections and in obviously the governorship in 2022. So I believe that Nevada is going to stay. It's going to go for Trump by about half a percentage point is probably what you'll see. Now, bear in mind, these polls that we're aggregating, for the most part, now other than like Rasmussen, these polls that are being aggregated on like Silver Bulletin, 538, and all of those oversample Democrats historically by a major amount. So, I mean, some of those polls, it's like 5 to 6 percentage points during presidential elections. They tend to be more accurate in midterms because not as many people show up to vote in midterms. And when you get like the face, the presidential face to the ticket, that makes a huge difference. In how many people are actually going to show up to vote and what way they're voting, the personality, things like quotes from that particular person, which is why they're trying to smear Donald Trump right now, by the way, with that whole, Liz Cheney firing squad bullshit. Like they're doing everything that they can to try to get a sound bite to swing people the other way because presidential elections are always like that. So Nevada goes Trump by about 0.5%, I think is what we're going to see. Moving down to Arizona. Now, Arizona, with its 11 electoral votes, is actually polling about 2.5% for Trump. I think he actually wins it by about 4 to 5%. Looking at a lot of these polls, some of the polls that are dragging down the number are outliers. So, we'll see. Al, sir, public speaking is not for you. No offense. Sweet. Thank you. Auntie Dodal, Trump should win Georgia. They're already trying like hell to cheat. Yeah, I know there's craziness happening. No, I voted for Trump yesterday, guys. I know there's new people in here. I voted for Trump yesterday. So Arizona goes to Trump by about, I would say 3 to 4 points probably. I'm taking into account oversampling of Democrats and the outlier polls. So I kind of went through 538, Silver Bulletin, a couple other aggregators and looked at them and, So New Mexico is the next one. Now New Mexico is interesting. Trump rallied there, so I think his internals must say that he's doing better there than the polls are saying. Right now, the polls are saying about a +5 or 6 for Harris, so that's still more than the margin of error. There have been a couple that have been, you know, pretty close, like within the margin of error, +3, +2 for Harris. I can't bring myself to say that Trump is going to win New Mexico. I don't think he is. I'd love to say he is, but I just don't think it's possible. I think Harris will hold New Mexico, but it's going to be a narrow victory, probably about 3 to 4% is what it looks like to me. Okay, so let's move on from there to Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is, yeah, exactly, Hank Jr. He's not going to win New Mexico, no. Minnesota is polling, I've seen a couple of polls that show Harris up by only 3, but I don't believe that Trump has enough support there to actually win it. I think Minnesota goes blue. I'm going to call it about a tilt blue, but I think Minnesota goes blue by maybe 4 or 5% to Harris. I think that a lot of these aggregators are saying about 8 to 10%. I don't think it's going to be that big. I think the 6 to 8% margin, it could be as low as 3 to 5 in Minnesota, but I think I don't think that it's low enough for Trump to actually pull that one off. Okay, so then let's go ahead and finish out the Sun Belt before we go back and, because those big 3 in the Rust Belt, those are the ones everybody's wanting to see, right? So Georgia, Trump is leading comfortably in Georgia, almost 3%. 3% is hard to beat in Georgia. I think Georgia had been going red for quite some time until Biden flipped it last time. I think it flips back. I think you see Trump's margin of victory there about 3. I think Trump wins Georgia. There have been some weird things going on in Georgia, though. There have been a lot of reports of vote flipping, which is, who knows how true it is. But, yeah, that's been the case in the last couple of weeks. I think Trump carries Georgia. I think Trump also carries North Carolina. Now, he has won the prior 2 elections. And I think that it's going to be pretty similar. It's going to be pretty similar to what we saw in 2020. Maybe Trump will win it by, let's see, he won by 1.3, 1.5-ish in 2020. He won it by, I think 3 in 2016 against Clinton. I think you're going to see it somewhere in the middle there. I think it's going to be about a 2%, maybe probably about a 2% victory in North Carolina for Trump right now, just based on the polling that I'm seeing. Thoughts on PA? We'll get there. We're getting there. We've got a few more to go. Virginia and New Hampshire. Now, these are both very interesting to me. Rasmussen had a poll come out of New Hampshire that was a +1. Now, Rasmussen does bias. Its bias leans toward Republicans. So take it with a grain of salt. But I also saw a couple of left-leaning polls that were Harris +2 and Harris +1. So it's all within the margin of error. I'm not going to say that New Hampshire is going to go to Trump. I don't think it does. I think Harris wins it by a narrow margin, maybe 1 or 2 points. But I would not be shocked to see New Hampshire flip to Trump. So keep an eye on New Hampshire during election night. It might surprise a lot of people. And remember, if New Hampshire flips for Trump, in a lot of paths, he doesn't actually need Nevada to win the election, because Nevada is 6 votes and New Hampshire is 4. So there's a couple of pathways where Trump gets New Hampshire. It doesn't matter in Nevada. Now, Virginia is another interesting one, and Virginia is not a small prize. Virginia is 13 electoral votes, and it's polling within the margin of error. Lots and lots of polls at about 3 to 4% in Harris's favor. I've seen several that are Harris +1. I haven't seen any with Trump leading, but I've seen the aggregate is within the margin of error. Now, with the Republican court victories as well that have recently happened, it's showing 13 for me on this map. Cole says 14. It's showing 13 for me right now. They did the redistricting So I think when they what's is that the right word, redistricting? When they changed it up, it's just like Ohio was 19 in the or 18 in the 2016 election, and now it's 17. A bunch of them are a little bit different. Like Pennsylvania was 20, now it's 19. So there's been some redistricting going on. I think Virginia is now 13, but Virginia. It's within the margin of error, and with that court victory, um, in that the Republicans just had there, getting the illegals off the voting rolls. Which, by the way, that's amazing, isn't it? That the DOJ was trying to keep illegal voters on the voter rolls. That's crazy. It's just absolutely terrible. But the Republicans did win, and that is something that every state should have, by the way. But with that being said, I won't be surprised if Virginia goes to Trump, and that also is another path to victory for him that's very plausible. So right now it's lean Harris, but I'm gonna say Harris takes it. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked to see Virginia go to Trump as well. Who knows? Because you got to remember, even though Biden won it by a significant margin, I think he won it by 8 or 9 points. Youngkin is now in, and he's backing Trump. And there seems to be a rightward bias starting in Virginia, just a little bit more, and as well as that, there's a bunch of polls that are showing margin of error right now. So people in Virginia clearly don't like Harris as much as they liked Biden. Let's see. Jeffrey B. What's really crazy is the Democrats turned down the SAVE Act. Yeah, dude, that was crazy. That was crazy. But the Republicans also bundled it with the spending thing because they were trying to get their way. It should have just been passed on its own. Like, forget bundling it with anything else. You just need to pass the SAVE Act. It just needs to happen. Okay, so let's go to the big three now. These are the ones that will decide the election because right now we've got Harris sitting at 226 and Trump is sitting at, I got to do some math here, 268. And we've got the three Rust Belt states. So in this pathway, which looks like the most plausible pathway, by the way, is 226 to 268, and we've got Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin to go. All Trump has to do is win one of these three. So we know that these three states tend to vote together. Historically, if one of them goes red, they all go red. If one of them goes blue, they all go blue. That's the most likely scenarios. But we're going to go ahead and go through them all. So Pennsylvania, I think Trump probably has the best case to win Pennsylvania. He's polling ahead by the largest margin here, I think by 0.4. Last I saw, or 0.3. So that he's got the best margin of those three Rust Belt states in Pennsylvania. Now, once again, there is a significant bias toward Democrats in polling in these states. So Trump could be as far ahead as 4 to 5 points. I sincerely doubt that that's the case, but it has been that way in the past. However, Pennsylvania's early voting looks really, really good for Republicans. Really good for Republicans. That 1.1 million firewall that they had in 2020 is now only a 360,000 firewall. It's been cut cut to a third. So that's actually a really, really big deal with the early voting. I think a lot of people, especially Republicans that typically wouldn't have voted, have come out to vote for the in Pennsylvania. Well, for the Republicans in general. And I've seen a lot of posts today by people who are poll watching in Pennsylvania saying that there's a lot of men showing up to vote. Charlie Kirk was saying that as well. So I think it looks okay. In Pennsylvania, I think Trump does take Pennsylvania, and that will win it outright. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Michigan and Wisconsin. Now, I think we might see the first split here. I don't think Trump wins Michigan. He's leading right now by like 0.2. But Wisconsin, I had to think about this one, so I don't really know. I could see Wisconsin and Michigan both going for Harris. She would still lose, obviously, but I could see that happening. She would lose with 251 to Trump's. Let's see, what would Trump have? 302, 380, or 287. Um, so I could see, I could see that happening, but I think that Wisconsin is the more conservative of those two states. But I think that the Democratic unions, uh, they are going to back Harris in Wisconsin and Michigan. I don't think Trump wins Michigan. I think Harris takes it, and my gut is telling me that Harris takes Wisconsin as well. So in my final count, I've got Michigan and Wisconsin going to Harris, Pennsylvania going to Trump, and the final count is 287 for Trump and 251 for Harris, if I'm counting right. I have a electoral map sitting in front of me, and I'm kind of doing the math myself with these swing states. Somebody in the chat said, uh, somebody in the chat said that there was a Democrat talking about Iowa going blue. Yeah, Iowa, there was a poll that just came out of Harris +3 in Iowa. I don't believe it whatsoever. I think what's happening is the pollsters are trying to put out like a final propaganda push before the election. Like this is their last polls. So they're trying to get those Kamala voters riled up to get out there and vote. So I think that's what's happening. There's a huge Democrat bias in the media, and everyone knows it. So, you know. I also saw another one. Unc Andy says Harris is a no way in Wisconsin. I don't know. She's polling ahead right now by like 0.2. The unions, those old union Democrats that are going to vote blue no matter who, that's what I'm scared of in Michigan and Wisconsin. I would love it if they, Michigan and Wisconsin went red, and that would be is that 312 for Trump in that case? Yeah, 312 to 220, 226, is that right? Yeah, 312 to 226 in the case that they both go, but I think it's going to be 287 to 251. She's going to take Michigan and Wisconsin. Trump is going to take Pennsylvania, and Trump wins 287 to 251. Somebody said opinion of the Iowa poll. Yeah, I was just talking about that. It's an outlier. It's a terrible poll. I 100% disagree with it. Now, if you guys want some really good poll discussions, that sounds dirty, but discussions of the what the polls look like in really deep detail. There's a guy, it's Depressed Ginger on YouTube. He's actually really, really good. Pretty unbiased with the way he goes, and he gets into all the numbers. His map is a little different than mine. I watched his earlier today. He has Michigan and Wisconsin both going to Trump, and he definitely knows more about the polls than I do. But just from what I'm hearing, from what I'm seeing, and understanding that shenanigans may be a thing. Michigan, they've already found 160,000 duplicate votes because they said it was a glitch in the machine. They say that they fixed it. Who knows? But that came out a couple of days ago, and I made a video about it. If you want more information, go take a look at that. But there is that. So I don't know about Michigan. Michigan is very sketchy. Let's see. So somebody just said, discuss the voting machines. Yeah, there have been a lot of videos showing voting machines. You click Trump and it switches your vote, or you have to press next to get to Trump's. Like all the other options are first, and then you have to press next to get to Trump. There's a whole lot of weird stuff. There've been talks about like you put in your vote, and this one was actually confirmed in Georgia by the Georgia election. What is it called? The election committee or whatever, election commission. That's what it is, by the Georgia election commission. People were putting in their vote for Trump, and then when the ballot printed out, it was printing out with Harris on there. So it was flipping the vote when you printed it. So that actually was a thing that was happening. A couple of machines in Georgia, they say they've taken them out of commission and they're not using them anymore. I have no idea about the truth of that. If I had to guess, with bureaucrats, that's probably they just took them and put them somewhere else. So, yeah. But yeah, that's a thing. JM, when I voted today in Illinois, the poll worker slid my privacy sheet like 1/3 of the paper now, clearly seeing who I voted for. She helped me put the paper in the scanner. Dude, I also saw where mailed ballots in Wisconsin were, there was a barcode over the Trump Scantron dot, so you couldn't fill out a vote for Trump in it because it would the barcode would interfere with the Scantron, but it didn't cover any other options, just Trump. You could with the mail-in ballot, you literally could not vote for Donald Trump. OP Jeff, life in Seattle must be absolutely miserable. I left Seattle. I love Seattle. I'm from Seattle. Mount Rainier is I love hiking Mount Rainier, but I left Seattle. Seattle got to be crazy. Verona Banton, people like you are dangerous. Why am I dangerous? Let's see. Justice Caparos, what state do you live in now? I live in the Midwest. I don't tell people what state I live in because I'm a medical professional and it'd be easy to find me by state looking at medical licenses. So, Holger Bartels, well, still he seems pretty confused, talking about so much nonsense which often fails the fact checking. No, okay, whatever. I mean, I don't really know how to argue with people like you because, like, I literally just said I've got a video with references on it, and the Georgia Election Commission did address the issue of vote flipping because it was happening. They took the machine out of commission. Pennsylvania they literally had police officers. The state lost a lawsuit and they're having all kinds of issues because they had police officers telling people to leave and that they couldn't vote because they were closing the polls early. They were doing a lot of illegal stuff. There is a whole lot of there is a whole lot of just weird stuff going on. I'm not saying the election is rigged. That's all I'm saying. Savannah and Evan, see how Ohio isn't a swing state anymore because apparently too much white people in Ohio. Ohio is not a swing state. They're trying to say it is. They're trying to say Ohio is going to be very disputed. I completely disagree. So, my thingy just did my stream pause? I'm sorry. Not what happened. I'm not sure what happened. Let's see. Christopher Jackson, fact checking by Democrat, fact checking. Yeah. Savannah and Evan, I appreciate you reading my comment. I usually try to read all the comments, but I've been like going over the electoral map. So if you want to scroll back and get to it, then that's fine. Savannah and Evan, you a Democrat or Republican? I am neither. I'm an independent, but I did vote for Trump. Holger Bartels, sorry, bro. I was referring to Trump. Your statements are fine. Oh, okay. Batshit crazy says Trump 38 to 41 states win. Not even close. It's gonna be. I just went through my entire map. It's gonna be 287 to 251. Trump will take it, but that's about it. Transcendental agitation. Hello, bro. Greetings from the Netherlands. Hello. Netherlands are cool. I would like to visit. OP Jeff, two guys wearing MAGA hats in California weren't allowed to vote with political apparel, yet the Harris t-shirts were allowed. Did you guys see in San Francisco at the Niners game last week? They were blocking people from coming in with MAGA hats. That was crazy. It was like, oh, you're wearing a MAGA hat? Nope, get out. And then, of course, Nick Bosa shows up after the game. Nick Bosa shows up after the game wearing a MAGA hat. That's great, so... Well, that's about it for this one. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.